What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Mark Walberg. Welcome to Bonfire Talks. We are lighting it up again today. Pretty excited. Hi, Kaylin.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Thank you for asking. Very, very well. And you?
I'm doing well as well.
Can I, same thing I've been trying to correct myself with gender-specific compliments towards women, where I don't compliment them physically. I compliment something of substance.
Right.
And then maybe ask for consent for something else.
I like the physical compliments. I'm okay with that one, yeah.
I'm asking consent to compliment you.
Please do. Physically.
The new haircut and the trimmed beard, it's giving model.
Thank you.
I'm embarrassed that I use It's Giving. Okay, I just want to let you know there's certain phrases that pop in my head that are in my lexicon that I want to use, and I realize age inappropriate. For instance, the number of times slay shows up in my psyche is uncomfortable for me, and I fight the urge to say it. And that I said It's Giving, and you're blushing. So
yeah, I thought you were going to tell me I'm giving slay vibes. I would accept that one. Girl,
maybe. Okay, we're a little off track, and I'm just listening to people click off of this as I speak. But I love today because I have two of my favorite guests back in the studio. I'm so grateful that they chose to come back. Your mom and dad are here, which makes me like your great-grandfather. I don't know how this works, but your mom and dad, Jess and Evan Ambrose, are here. Hi, guys.
Mark, it's all, coming to see you is always one of our most favorite things. We
talk
about it leading up to it. We're like, we get to see Mark today.
I feel the same way.
Life better.
I feel the same way, and it's funny because I love you both, and that's difficult for me because this bonding is easy.
Yes.
Like, that's comfortable for me.
Sure.
But most, like, the alpha dude thing always kind of makes me uptight. But you're a warm, cuddly alpha dude.
No, I'm not alpha, man. I'm beta.
Whatever.
Beta king.
I'm way down the Greek alphabet on most days. Although I have had some alpha moments lately that I've enjoyed. But
I want to hear about those.
Yeah.
But I want to let you know, Evan, that I feel seen by you and comfortable with you.
I love you so much, and you're like the kindest, sweetest guy, but you're also a boss, and
Thanks,
you teach
buddy.
me a lot, so
Thank
I'm
you.
lucky to know you.
Well, I've been learning from you guys on many levels. First of all, if you haven't checked it out, their podcast is Your Mom and Dad Podcast. That's correct, right?
Yes.
On all the places where you get podcasts. And you guys, you know, when you first started the podcast, I listened a little bit, and then I was listening again this morning, and you just have this vibe, and it's such a lesson for all of you guys to listen to them as a married couple to see how they relate to one another. Just so healthy and comfortable, and I envy it many times when my wife and I are screaming at each other. So.
Well, here's the thing. You know, we don't put those parts in the podcast because when we're actually sitting down recording, that's not when we're arguing, but the arguing happens.
Yeah. Well, that's like
sure.
my wife says, you know, she can deal with TV's Mark Walberg. You know, that guy's terrific.
Bring that guy home.
Yeah.
The guy on the couch, fuck him.
Tonight.
So, yeah. Anyway, she sends her love to both of you.
Oh, we love
miss
Robbie. She's so fantastic.
She was so funny.
I know you got a kick out of Robbie.
She
You
made me
loved her
laugh
so
hard.
much.
Just an absolute. I don't know. I feel like I'm drawn to, and I mean this term like in the most endearing way ever, but like characters. And she is just absolutely one of one.
Oh,
Like,
I get it.
I'm just like, you are.
Evan
I
loves
could
one of
ask her a
one.
million questions because she's just got all the answers.
I've often said that, you know, when I met her, I was like, this is way more than I'm used to. I'm used to like some cute, pretty audience girl.
Right.
You know, like I'll do the jokes.
Yeah.
And then I met her, and I'm like, I was floored. I always talk about the lightning strike. I literally remember her turning and looking at me, and I got struck by lightning. But then as we started dating, I'm like, this is not my type at all.
Right.
She's
right.
way too much. But I got addicted to that crack.
Oh, it's the best.
You know, and now we have grown each other up where she's made me, I always talk about it, that all the stuff I talk about on the show I learned from her. And then I've kind of taught her how to deal with, you know, being in society. This is something she never learned at home.
Right.
But yeah, she's doing great in Sense Her Love, but she's at her dance class.
Oh, yeah.
She is now assisting this very renowned choreographer who's up in years, but he has a dance class for dancers, professional dancers over 40,
Oh, that's cool.
and some people who were the shit back in the day are in this class. And so she kind of does that thing.
That's so cool.
It's pretty cool.
I always wonder that with someone who's like a professional dancer, that like class-wise, like what are the availabilities then in the openings, and where it's like, yeah, you want to keep dancing for forever, and then there's someone like me who wishes that she could dance, and I'm desperately trying to find a true beginner's dance class for adults, because I've seen the beginners adult dance classes.
Well, that's how they get you.
No way.
Yeah,
I could
BS.
never do that. I can't. I can barely move. Let alone do these beginners dance classes.
I hesitate telling the story.
Say it.
But Robbie and I were, I don't even think we were married yet, but living together. And I had been a musical theater guy. And I was taking Jazz 2 at this Joe Tremaine studio. And it was a real jazz class. And I was there with my jazz shoes, with my leg warmers, like all of it. And I think back to how horrible I was, and we were going across the floor and doing all this stuff, and I think back to what I thought was acceptable,
yes.
And I realized this was a whole class of people going, bless his heart. What a sweet angel.
Let the man dance.
Yes, let him
dance. I didn't know that you were a musical theater guy, Mark.
That's why
You know that makes me love you 10 times more, and I didn't think it was possible.
Well, Robbie's a legit musical theater, like she was on Broadway and everything.
Yes.
The reason I came to California was that. I was in college, and this group called the Young Americans, which was a singing and performing group, came through my college, and I went to meet my mom, who went to the concert, and they were holding auditions in the lobby, and I auditioned, and then I went away for the summer, did summer stock with them, and then after that, they asked me to move out to California, and so my first 3 years in California were selling shoes at Nordstrom, which I was maybe the best job ever.
I remember when I was younger and like looking for jobs, the selling shoes in Nordstrom was a thing for the guys, because it was like, you know, if you're really good at this, then you're meeting beautiful women all day.
All of it.
The commission was awesome.
Awesome.
That specific job I remember hearing about from guys in like high school and college.
And I was 19.
Yeah, that's it.
And charming.
Well,
sold a lot of shoes.
So Southern they could barely understand what I was saying, because I'm from South Carolina. What? And I looked like a tan Q-tip. I was a skinny guy with a big head of hair. And but anyway, so I would work at Nordstrom during the day, but the theater we were performing in was in the same parking lot as the mall, and my apartment was across the street from the mall.
Oh my
God. So for the first year of my life, I had no car, and I walked to Nordstrom, the theater, and back to my apartment that had no furniture. And that was my triangle of love. But yeah, so I did that for a long time, and wasn't much of a singer, wasn't much of a dancer, but every time they wanted a transition from one thing to the other, they say, Mark, you go talk. And I'm like, all right. And that's where that started.
The hosting began.
This isn't what I really expected us to talk about.
I just didn't know about the musical theater.
You know,
background,
Robbie and I worked on a cruise ship together, singing and dancing.
This I knew.
Yeah.
This I knew.
Oh, wow.
Which
to me was the highest point of my career, and her acquiescing to do something well below her abilities.
Isn't that interesting?
Just to be with me.
That's life right there. It's like, it's like the trash treasure thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
true.
to her, it's like, oh, I'm sliding.
Yeah, what have
To
I done in my career?
I finally have a shot.
Well, I don't have to serve food.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid to sing and dance.
What were the number? Like, what was the vibe? Like, what did you have to learn? Was this like a lot of prep?
This cruise ship was before the ones we know. So literally, you could take this cruise ship and put it on the cruise ships now.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 900 passengers, but at the time, a luxury cruise liner. And there were 7 of us in a show, and we did 2 45-minute shows on a 9-night cruise, and one was a tribute to television, so we sang all these TV theme songs and did all these dances and stuff. And then the other one was sort of a conglomerate of different songs where we brought people out of the audience. I think my song was, I think I did Limbo Rock with people out of the audience doing the limbo.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Free food.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you're living good.
I gained 35 pounds.
You're living good. Yeah. To you, it's like, this is amazing. I got free food. I don't have to pay for all this stuff.
I ate 7 meals a day.
Amazing. As you should have.
All I did for 6 months on that cruise was, well, there's so many stories, but I ate every meal there was. And then they had these guest performers who were headliners that would come in for 2 or 3 cruises.
Yeah.
and one of them was this harmonica player. So I'd get a call on the little phone,
Right.
Like at 11 every morning, and we'd go stand in a shower and smoke weed, and then I'd eat all day long.
Sure.
Until
that
you're
was,
performing.
I keep saying if I wasn't engaged to Robbie and scheduled to get married to her directly after the cruise, I'd still be on that cruise.
Oh yeah.
You'd never leave.
I'd
Well,
never
you'd
leave.
find lovers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
You'd have a lover
20
every
illegitimate
week.
children.
Yes.
I'd have skin cancer and be 300
Children
pounds.
in every
That's-
port.
That's a
and
documentary. I mean, like just cruise entertainers. Like, where's the 60-year-old cruise entertainer guy that's been doing it for 30 years?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's like the harmonica guy too, right? That's a shot of a lifetime. I don't think harmonica guys are getting gigs like left and right.
Or the tap dancing marimba player.
Right.
Who was a
Whatever.
regular. That I
That's
fucking loved.
I love that. It's like Circus 2.0. It's like where
That's
they all go.
exactly right. And there's, it's just this escapist lifestyle, because at the time it was before cell phones. You couldn't, when you pulled out of the port,
You're out.
that's it. And I adored it. I'm like,
yeah.
never come home.
That's amazing.
And Robbie was itching to get off the ship every time.
she's running off.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
setting up
She
camp.
was a lot. She was a lot. She had, I'm eating everything, and she was on a health food diet. So she had one in this huge, like, gigantic refrigerator, like a room. There was one little area that had Robbie's millet and like all her health food in the corner. And I'm eating lobster thermidor, and I'm like, let's do that again.
Oh,
Let's just do two.
yeah. No, there's an endless buffet. I'm
Yeah.
not leaving.
I'm going to turn the corner to talk about you guys. I wish I could listen to your recaps of my show before I taped my show. So if you are into Temptation Island, which I sure hope you are, mostly for my mortgage, but I hope you enjoy the show, you've got to go to your mom and dad podcast and listen to you guys recap, because there are insights and takes, hot takes on the cast and what's going on that I kind of need you to tell me before I do a bonfire, and I think I'd see things a lot differently.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, we were curious about how much you actually get to know and see beforehand, or if you're like kind of flying blind in there.
I've talked about it a lot, but it's a choice I make to fly blind. I don't want to know. I want to meet them where they are in the bonfires.
Okay.
I want to see the clips when they see it, and have no I don't want to be driving them towards some point in our conversation. I want to be following them and talking into wherever they are in that moment.
Right.
But now I've been wondering since this morning when I'm listening to your recap of episodes 7 and 8, if it would not be beneficial for me to know more.
Honestly, I think exactly what you're doing is perfection, because we were literally talking about how we're like, you have such a gift. Obvious, everybody knows this, especially during bonfires and how you're able to meet people where they're at. I'm like, if I knew and had any insight going in, I would have full judgment. I'd be like, there's no way that I'd be able to look someone directly in the eyes and be like, so let's have a sweet talk, because I'd be having all sorts of feelings and emotions.
Could you? How could
yes,
you?
I'd be going off. I'd be wagging my finger, be like, we need to sit down and have a talk immediately, young man. I'd be so frustrated. But because you go in and you're just like meeting them where they're at, it makes it, I think, such a better show, because you don't have someone in come in and just lecture.
I don't know, because there are things that happen. First of all, there's no way for this to work, because what you're seeing is cut after the fact.
True,
so
true.
From the edit. So there are things you see, like you were talking about today with Grant was going, did you hear what I said?
Yeah. Oh,
Did you?
Yeah.
Like, these are nuances that I never see and that you guys picked up on. Even when I watched the show, I didn't see it. That I literally wish I could have you on the phone as counsel and going, so what do you think of this dude?
I think that'd be bad.
Yeah, it's not
Because
good.
we'd be just so
Mark,
biased. We hate this guy.
We can be very ranty, and also too, I'm like, when I get a certain vibe from someone, and I've realized this when we're recapping, that I have to check myself. I'm very much first impression energy, and so when I see someone and I get a feel, the whole rest of the season, I'm watching like a hawk that person to find any moment that I'm like, see, I was right.
See, I told you.
Right,
I
exactly,
told you.
which isn't necessarily healthy. I think it's fun to recap that way, but that can be a life struggle for me, where I'm like, hey, take a deep breath. You don't know what that person was dealing with that specific day that you met them. You don't have to try to figure out and analyze everything about him.
That's the same life struggle all of us have.
Yeah.
I think our fight or flight, here we go. This is me doing that thing.
I love it.
We're at the bonfire. We're sitting right now. You're analyzing our footage.
I think the fight or flight mechanism in humans makes us put so much importance on the first impression. So we are literally assessing danger in every first encounter we have. And then we have to fight our intuition, because what it is we pick up a vibe and relate it to a vibe from our past that either had a good outcome or a bad outcome. So we lump them in a bucket of people like them but not them who did this and that outcome happened. So you get a vibe off of somebody that's like cringes you out, and it's because Amy from 1982 cringed you out, and they're similar.
That's my life. That's like that. There is no getting around. I mean, the amount of therapy with that issue is so prevalent in my life that I've just decided there's no escaping it. Like, it is who I am, and it's like I just really hope that you don't cringe me out, as you say. You know what I mean? Because it's like I try every time I try. He's really not the guy. He's not that way, and then he ends up being that way. And I'm like, I fucking told you.
Then there's that point, which is that intuition that you get on a first impression is often not far from the truth.
Sure.
You know, it was a Maya Angelou who said, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Something like that.
I love, yes.
Yeah. Yes. I'm misquoting, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
So but where it gets tricky for me is that when I'm not in a good place, my interpretation of those first impressions is skewed by my insecurity.
Okay.
And so that's when I'll misread a first impression and lump them into danger zone or I hate you zone instead of meeting them where they are.
I mean,
I feel like it's like happy people. That's the difference between happy people and the rest of us. It's like the happy people are the ones that don't have all that, like, when they meet someone, they're like putting them in a category. They're just like, life's amazing. Yes. I like your hair. Cool shoes. Like, the last thing, I've never thought like cool shoes. I've always just thought like, what's your deal? You know what I mean? Like, so when it's like, when you meet happy people, you're like, what is that? Why are you so happy all the time? And I literally think it's because they don't have as much stored, like, you know, what's going on with you, buddy, energy. And then they're just like, oh, here's a new person. This should be exciting.
What you're tapping into is our general resentment of people who seem eternally happy, and while we like to be around them, we sort of resent that we don't have what they have.
I'm so jealous.
And you know, you collect joyful people.
Yeah,
he really does.
That's like I just put him around me. Hopefully, it rubs off.
He collects all the golden retrievers, and they're all running around him all the time.
I love him.
And then he's bringing harsh realities, and I'm like, don't dim their light.
You know, it's a lot worse than you think it is, right?
Yeah.
There's a pack of golden retrievers with one gnarly cur in the middle of it.
Dark.
Exactly. Just a Rottweiler in the middle.
But let's not
not
underestimate a little darkness on the palette of painting, because that's the authentic part of you that's needed. And those golden retrievers all around you sometimes are truly happy, but sometimes they're just not tapping into any. They're just like, everything's good. And they end up being those married couples that seem perfect, but she's drinking wine all day at the club.
Right.
And he's working late a lot.
Right.
Right.
Drinking wine at the club sounds pretty cool, though. I'm into that. I want to be that one.
Yeah. First of all,
I choose that existence.
I choose that.
Yeah. I want to get to the point where I can join a club.
Yeah.
And afford the wine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Not the case.
That little bit of darkness, though, that's something that like really helped. Like the realization of that helped me a lot. The idea of balance in life, because I think the way I was raised was very much like push out all the dark, keep in all the light. Anything dark is bad. And internally, I don't know if you do the Enneagram at all, but I'm a 4, and 4 is there's a melancholiness. So I'm like, in general, I do feel like a pretty joyful person, but I have this internal melancholy all the time and like wanting more and these desires, but I was always pushing that out because it was like no darkness, only light. I think that's why I chose you, because I saw your darkness and I was like, I'm taking
Got plenty
it.
of it.
You outsourced the darkness.
Exactly. I was like, bring him in. But when I started to realize that it's like, no, this isn't bad. It's just making life more balanced and complex, that I stopped pushing it out and let it like sit. And that made life a lot better instead of just shooing it all away all the time. That made me miserable, at least for me.
It's not. It's an unnatural thing to do.
Yeah.
What it basically is the equivalent. It's the self version equivalent of someone else not validating your feelings. So you're having a feeling and you're self unvalidating it by pushing it down. And then the fact is, anything pushed down throws up at some point in a
true.
dark, scary way at your children.
Yeah. Things came out in all sorts of different ways before I started to figure out that lesson. That's for sure.
Which makes me ask, how did you two meet?
Oh my gosh. We've known each other since we were 9 or 10.
What?
Yes. So our families
There go the waterworks.
our families were friends. So our families went to the same church together growing up. And it was weird because even at that age, like 10 or 11, our parents would get together and we were close in age. He's a year older than me. But even at that time,
9 months.
Yeah, 9 months. Give or take. He's like, excuse me.
No, we're not the same age.
But it was like, even at that age, I remember having these really like intense conversations and feeling so comfortable with each other right away. And I'd be like, I'm like 11 or 12 and we're sitting by the pool and I'm opening up to a guy who normally I wouldn't be comfortable opening up to because he's cute.
Not at 11 years old.
No, and I'm like, he's cute and everything, and I'd normally be shy, but I felt so comfortable with him. And we ended up becoming close friends. We were like in a tight, close friend group together. And then we started dating when I was 16. You were 17.
Yeah.
And
but it was weird because it wasn't like we were in love with each other from, you know what I mean? It was like we were just friends for years, and she had a boyfriend and I was friends with her boyfriend and we'd all hang, you know what I mean? It wasn't, and then all of a sudden it's like, it clicked.
This is every rom-com that I love and sob to. Because your relationship is built on an abnormal amount of trust at the maturity level that you'd have at 11 years old.
Yes.
So it's an innate sense of trust, which is argues for soulmate.
And it's one of those things where I understand our situation is so unusual, because I think about, even when I talk to friends about relationship advice, you know, my thought is always, I think being friends first is a good idea, but I understand in adult life, it's like the likelihood of that happening is near impossible. So,
and if you're like 25 and you're friends with someone, you're either going to like try to get with them or be like, I'm not interested.
Yeah, in that
but
way.
By that time, you will have like made the choice or made the decision in your brain.
So,
like, this is an option or it's not. And it's very rare that you're going to be like, 3 years into our relationship when I was 30, I realized I'm attracted to
the rom-com of it all.
As an adult, you have the vibe, the sexual chemistry vibe.
Right away,
Right.
yeah.
But if your friendship is based pre that, it doesn't cloud your judgment.
1,000%.
I'm guessing. I'm not.
Well, and no, 100%. We were so young and we started as friends. And so I think we just were friends for so long. And then one day my mom was actually the one, Evan was over and we were in high school and we hadn't started dating yet. And we were just, you know, yapping at each other. And my mom just walked by and goes, are you guys ever going to just be honest and admit that you like each other? And walks away. And I was like, screw you.
Yeah.
How dare you
ruin
my life? But actually her bringing that up kind of opened the door, because I think both of us were nervous to talk
Broach
about
the subject.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, I don't want to lose this friendship. And so then we started dating, and we dated for a couple years, and we were intense together. It was interesting because we went from being such good friends to then trying to make that work in a romantic relationship. And it was hot and cold and angry at each other and passionate and intense. And we didn't really know how to manage that at all.
We also came from like super different upbringings in regards to style. Like I was raised super independent. Like, just, you're on your own. so it was just, I was always kind of doing and going. And so I also just didn't even know how to like be a boyfriend and be like consistent.
Right.
And I wasn't like doing anything wrong in regards to like sketchy or anything. It was just more like,
you were just a kid.
I'm just doing shit all the time. And whether it's a sport thing or a friend hanger or whatever.
I get it.
And I had no idea how to
So when you're together, you're there.
Yeah.
But when you're not together, you're not scheduling the next together.
Exactly. Or I'm bailing on a hang because I got a thing, or, you know, I want to do this. So it was just, I had no idea how to be a boyfriend. And for sure caused some trauma there because it was just like, you know.
Yeah, and then
stability wasn't my strength.
On the flip side, well, you've always been a hard worker, and so you also had like 15 projects that you were always doing. And then on the flip side, I at the time was really discovering some of my mental health journey. I have diagnosed bipolar disorder, and at the time I wasn't diagnosed yet, and so I was literally ups and downs.
I get it.
All over the place.
And being told to stuff it and you're going to be okay and just be happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the combination
Which is great
of that,
for bipolar disorder.
Yeah, it doesn't
just be
work.
happy.
It's fantastic.
I'm still trying it. It doesn't seem to connect. Like chill out or like, you know, just calm down. Doesn't seem to work.
Just
but
only the good things. Just
everything's fine, babe.
So that did not work out very well. And so that was all happening at the same time. So then we ended up breaking up. And we were then both in college when we broke up and spent about a year apart.
Yeah.
And then saw each other at a Christmas party. I mean, magnets.
Yeah.
And so then the next 6 months was tough not to just run back into a relationship. He wanted to date me, and I had to play hard to get because he broke up with me, so I had to kind of play a little bit of a game.
I understand.
But genuinely, I had to be like, okay, why did he break up with me in the first place? Have things changed, or are we just going to go back to where we were? And am I going to be devastated again because we were both so heartbroken when we broke up?
I think this is a lot of what happens on Temptation Island right here.
Yes.
Is I've been heartbroken, so now I will go into this next thing with all these guardrails, and that's also not good.
Yes. And I noticed, too, even when we were watching these last two episodes with Grant's conversation about Ashley, about how, hey, my family views it this way and I feel like a failure. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about that, too, where it's like the idea of I don't want to have to be heartbroken again. Like, I don't want to have to go through this whole experience again. Yeah. And that's where we then were for a little while, and then we ended up getting back together, and the rest is history. I mean, we've been together since. It's been
we haven't fought since then.
No fight since then, but we've been together for about 20 years.
You've been together as a couple
for 20
like,
years.
20 years.
Yeah, including whatever. But it's like
that's impressive because you're not old enough for that.
No, 36.
That's craziness.
Yeah. So I guess it's like,
but I think about it as
18 and a half. If you
Robbie and I got married 2 weeks before my 25th birthday. Mm. And we have recently said, we got married because we didn't even think about it. It was just what people did. And we were like, I think we've been dating a while and we live together and let's just get married. And honest to God, there wasn't a thought in my head about it. And so this summer will be 38 years of marriage.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And we're still trying to figure it out.
Isn't it wild to think about now getting married at 25? Like, I was 23 and he was 24 when we got married. Yeah. And now when I look at like a 23 and 24-year-old, I'm like, don't do what I did.
Well, but when I was
like, don't do it.
Yeah. No. When I was 25, I had felt like I'd been single forever.
Of course.
And I was just like, I'm so done with all of this, but it was so different. And but there is I've thought about this a lot because I have friends who didn't get married or were searching for love at 40 and then maybe found it. One particular, they found it, which is great. But ironically, he found it with somebody he knew from high school that they rekindled. But
interesting.
I've often said that there's some beauty in, I always say that there are couples where you say, I'm not really ready to get married until I get my shit together. Mm-hmm. Like once I get my house and once I get my job set, then I'll get married. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think you ever get your shit together. It's better to get a partner and get your shit together. You know what I mean? Because when we got married, we had nothing. She and I had nothing. And now that has been a theme. We still have nothing, but it's together. Mm-hmm. And so before we lumped ourselves into habits and a more detailed list of what we must have and what we don't tolerate. We were sort of an open book of, let's just create this as we go.
Right.
And so I think there's some beauty. That goes back to even my theory on prearranged marriages.
Sure.
I mean, that sounds really archaic and terrible, but if it's the first person you ever had sex with and you learn to love each other and you grow into love, there is some beauty in that too. I'm not condoning that, of course.
No, but I mean, like, there's plenty of cultures still around the world that are participating in it. And I spent some time over in India, and I had numerous conversations with some wonderful women who, because it's, you know, the culture that they grew up in. And I'm like, okay, I have questions for you and how you feel. And I totally understood the fact that it's like, no, my parents are the people, like, they're giving me a choice. My parents are the people who know me the most. My family knows me the most. Like, I trust them. And there were so many beautiful marriages that I met that came from that.
Because there's several, but there's two different kinds of love. Mm-hmm. One is the lightning bolt of chemistry, sexual energy. I've fallen in love with you, which argues against a prearranged situation. But then there's the Fiddler on the Roof. Do you love me? Do I what? I don't. It's a musical theater reference. Please stay with me.
Please, of course. You know I'm in. I'm about to start singing.
Where two children, are wed for whatever reason, and then grow each other up, and that's a different love, a love that develops by choice and circumstance. So there's the chemistry love, and then there's we're thrown together, let's figure this out. And life keeps happening in front of you, and that's where you grow love.
If you had to choose one in an ideal world, or like choose one for one of your children, like, this is what I would want for them.
I would choose the chemistry love and hope that they're healthy enough to navigate through the toxicity of that to then let life show them that they truly do love one another. My son is a perfect example that they fell in love, and then life, he had a plane crash. He was a Navy pilot, and his plane went down, and so their life just turned to a left turn, and they had to make a choice as a couple. Are we going to work this out? This is not what we planned. Yeah. And then the shared experience, both traumatic and the joys, are where a different love grows. And that's really the cinder block foundation that you stand on when the other stuff is fluid. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I always go back and forth with this topic because logically, wait till you get your shit together, get married, it's all perfect. Like, that sounds the best, right? Like on paper, that sounds really good to be like, sure. You got your house and you own everything and you're like solidified as a person and you've done a lot of therapy and you're locked in. But there is this level of like, if you've done that, then there's not a lot of room for anyone else to kind of like join in. Then you have to get someone that you feel like is on the same perfect level you feel like you're at. Mm-hmm. And even if you get there, which is like you feel like you never actually get there, but if you do feel like you get to a place, then it's just like, it's almost like a business arrangement at that point, like two professionals meeting. That's versus like we're in the garage building the business together, figuring it out, blah, blah, blah. There's something about like if you spend too much time researching an idea, you'll never jump into it versus like just jump, figure it out, mess up, fail, whatever, where it's like, and then even if you get divorced, right, which is like the scary concept, even if you get divorced, you learned a lot. Now you know what you need. Now you know what your struggles are. And then the next time around, you aren't as scared, It's like,
right. I talk about that on the show a lot, but what you're speaking to, I agree with 100%, is that when you get your shit together and then you're in a relationship, and not to say that this is a bad thing, you have to be careful of this is mine and this is yours.
I think that's
right. Yeah. But when you get married with nothing, everything is ours, both the failures and the successes. And back to the divorce and the next thing, it makes me, this is something I'm actually on an episode just dropped. I'm a guest on somebody else's podcast, Dr. Laura Berman, who I was not aware of, but my wife fangirled hard because she's been on Oprah and everything.
I was going to say, I was like, dang.
And
that's
exactly
so cool.
what I needed in my life was to have a relationship with her. So that's kind of a synchrodestiny. Yeah. Is that, sometimes when you're needing advice or needing somebody in your life, it shows up and we don't pay attention. Back to the stuffing things, we don't pay attention when things show up for us, and we don't connect that they're for us. So anyway, had this really great conversation with
That's
Laura
amazing.
Berman where I was talking about the fact that I think a lot of times the trauma, the crisis, whatever, the toxicity of the relationships of the people on Temptation Island turns out that the next time they're up at bat, speaking to your point after divorce, they fix it. And then they have a forever relationship. Here's an example, because you're fans of the show. Do you remember Hall?
Yes.
And Caitlin, who were engaged on the show, and then he breaks off the engagement on the show, and we look at him as the villain and everything.
Yes.
And then he starts dating Michaela, who is this gorgeous, voluptuous goddess, and everybody's going, he's just blinded by the beauty.
Right, of course.
They're still together and very, very, very happy.
Really?
I've asked them to come on the show, but in deference, they're like, yeah, we don't need the drama. Love you both. Get it. I want you to know I'm bringing you up to celebrate the fact that what you have is true.
Right.
And that it was born out of when everybody was looking at you with a judgment, and whatever brought you to the show, obviously you learned some stuff on the other end of it. So that's the point I'm getting at. I kind of love that about the show, that oftentimes these tragic and toxic and crazy experiences end up growing people up.
Oh,
Big
yeah.
time. Especially, I think, young love, too. Because it's like you just go in, you're all in. Right? You're like fearlessly just like.
Especially before your heart gets broken the first time. Yeah.
For sure.
It's like you're like 20.
Yeah.
And you're just in it, and you're like, you have no concept of anything, and you just like go all in. And I think that allows you to teach you a lot about like who you are and what you like, what you don't like, how you're good, bad, your struggles. And I think that like you can only do that if you are committed to someone, because it's like if you're 20, but you're like in love, but you're also like committed. Like, let's say you're not married, but at least you're like, this is the love of my life. I'm going to marry this person. Like that type of all in. I do feel like it's a different mindset. It forces you to kind of go, we're going to figure this out.
That's really profound. You said it in a better way than something I have been trying to say. It's really, really profound, because there are two ways to do things. Something shows up in front of you, and you go, we're fucked, and you break up. Or if you go into it, as you guys obviously have, and we have, that there's no option, which is we run away, then we have to go through it. Like, can't go around it, can't go over it, can't go under it. We have to go through it. We're going to sit in a chair. We're going to look at each other in the soup of bullshit and realize there's no option for us except getting to the other end of the soup.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Other end of the, I'm not as good today. With,
I like that.
I like other end of the soup.
Because that's what it feels like, is when you're in it, you're in this soup
course.
of just, and you just want to shut down or go, fuck this, and I'm out, and try something else. But if you're committed, as you're saying, you just have to go through it.
I remember talking to a counselor who specialized in divorce, and one of the things that she was saying was, obviously there are situations where it's like these two people should not be together, especially when there's like a deep toxicity. But she said there are so many times over the years of her working that the most common thing that comes back is, I just kind of wish we would have tried harder when we were in that rut, instead of necessarily, and again, of course, there are many, many times when it's like divorce is the lane that we should choose, but I think it is something to consider.
I think the phrase tried harder may not hit it for me the way I would like to say it.
Yes.
I think it's more like, if I'm going to say I wish we were, I wish we were able to sit with it and not be scared of it.
Yes.
So we could then work through it.
Yes, because it's like people are trying their hardest through the whole thing, but the idea of knowing that maybe, we can sit with this.
Let's just sit with the thing that's in front of us that's like, I hate you right now, which is a thing in relationship where
of course.
I love you always, but I kind of hate you right now. And then, sit with that without running and talk it through.
Yeah.
Which I hate doing, but Robbie makes me do.
Well, hey, and
one of us has to
you
do
and
it.
I are simpatico in this way because, that's Evan in our relationship. And I'm like, I try to go back on the last 20 years. I'm like, there have been so many times when because I'm a runner, there have been so many times in our relationship that if it would have just been me fully in the driver's seat, we would have not been here today because we're going through something. I'm feeling off about it, and I want to end it because I want to run, and that's how I get when I'm feeling fearful. But Evan's the one who's like, hey, no, we're working through this. We're sitting in this together. And it's like, I couldn't be more grateful.
And you know why he does that?
Because he loves me.
That's exactly.
Yes.
That's why I love him.
That's exactly. Or you could be like my uncle.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Because, like there's the other side of the soup, which is like, know yourself. And it's like my uncle's 70, never been married,
no
parties nonstop. Literally, when he dates a woman, he goes, by the way, the weekends we're not together.
Yeah.
I'll
He's
go out
always
to a
been
bar,
like that.
I'll meet someone. He's never changed. He's seems like the happiest guy in the world.
But he
literally
knows
7 years
himself.
old.
His
Going
girlfriends have like a limited membership to his
No,
club.
literally.
Like you can only play the course Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, they live together, and he just goes, by the way, when I go out to bars, all bets are off.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right. And he's just like, he's lived this way his whole life, never even blinked at the idea of like, am I truly not happy? He's like, no, this is fucking amazing. And so it's like, you know what? There's the other side of it where it's like, hey,
Know yourself.
that guy
Know
would be
thyself.
hell in a marriage.
Which
For
is why
all
he's
involved.
choosing not to have them.
Exactly. And he's
Everybody
not,
wins.
And he's not hurting other people along the way because he's just,
I'm
he's
sure
not,
he's hurt people.
That's
but
true. That's true.
In a
that's
perfect
true.
world, he's had boundaries and communicated.
I have enjoyed our friendship. Oh, by the way, these your mom and dad podcast are my mom and dad when it comes to podcasts. Because I think you guys were so helpful in me deciding to do this and really supportive. And when this is done, I have some more questions. But you've been really helpful there. But I think the name of your podcast, Your Mom and Dad, and the way you talk to your viewers as family, with the understanding now that you guys have known each other your entire lives, it now all is making sense to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand what it was about your relationship that I was drawn to. There was a piece about the way you are with one another that I'm really touched by. And now I kind of have some insight of where that comes from, and it makes perfect sense. And so congratulations, you two.
Thank you.
And I love your podcast. I think, your takes on things are so different, and yet you have such a way of talking together that is so entertaining to me.
Thanks, Mark.
You're
Well, you're
welcome.
going to come on ours a little bit here.
I can't wait. I can't
Be
wait.
picking your brain.
Last thing I will say as we say goodbye is I keep threatening to do this, but I want an entire episode dedicated to your star child. They have a daughter who is extremely gifted in musical theater and stuff, and it fully expressed, and I've said this to you before, but I will say it again, the road to child actors' performance and all that is fraught with stories of carcasses left on the side of the road. But when you see a kid who absolutely is meant to be doing this, which is what my experience from what you've shared in your social media of Ember,
Yeah.
not Amber,
Ember, yeah. With
because one of your closed captions said Amber when you were singing Amber, and I'm like, have I been saying it wrong?
They always say Ember.
Yes. By the way, ARGS has me with WAHLBERG on the last episode, so I'm not pissed, but what the fuck?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I have enjoyed about watching her growth is you can't be that child, this talented child, and healthy if you haven't had permission to be fully expressed your whole life. If there has been no thumb of shame put on you for being who you are. And that's a parenting choice that my generation wasn't good at. And you guys obviously have nailed so far.
That's very complimentary.
I think that's been our goal. It's
That's
like we
been
know
the
we're going to
goal.
mess this up some way, but the one thing we wanted to do was we wanted this kid to not be afraid to be who they are, because we both grew up kind of afraid to be who we are, So it was always like shut it down, or that's embarrassing or whatever. So we just knew we really got, pushed down in a lot of ways, even unintentionally, you know what I mean? Just like you said, our parents didn't even know better. So it was just, if it was weird, don't do that. But we just knew, like, all right, if there's anything, let's just let her be herself and never make her feel bad about it. And I think that was
it's
goal
so
number one.
huge. And I'll give you a little insight into me is that I had great parents who were far more supportive than parents of that generation in the Deep South that my friends might have. My dad was very intimate and huggy, kissy, and all that. And my mom was young. She had me at 21. But one of the things that I am working with and through is that she, I think she was aware that I had something special because the world was reacting to me in a way similar to how Ember's world reacts to her. Like, who is this kid?
There's a sparkle. Yeah.
But her wanting me to be humble was to remind me I wasn't special a lot.
That's a big thing.
Which I now understand was her lovingly protecting me so that I didn't become one of those precocious kids that's just like stealing the air and energy vampire.
Sure.
Right? But it also had me have shame about who I actually was, as opposed to what I'm seeing with Ember is this incredible balance of what seems to be a thoughtful, loving child towards others, but also fully expressed. So they can go on stage and just do their thing.
Yeah, that's Jess. It's
100%.
100%. Like, I was just like, my goal is to follow her lead on that way because I just knew she was capable of it. She's just like, their connection is why. I mean, I didn't even know a mother and a daughter could. I didn't know a kid and a parent could be like this. It's like, because usually it's like, okay, my parent's my best friend, but I don't really look at them as a parent, or they're my parent.
Right.
And then they're kind of just a dominating
figure. You can't be parent or you
figure.
can't be friend, but there is a line.
She's, I mean, the most talented parent I've ever seen in my life in regards to both of those.
Nice.
Well,
it's like the hero and the best friend.
Let's say this, because I'm a little bit farther down the same road, is that relationship, that parent-best friend relationship, like, I love that you don't sound envious of but you're grateful for their connection.
So grateful.
All I'll tell you is that's also fluid. So there are times in the growth of your child where they'll push against this, and then they'll need you, and then back and forth. And so my daughter and I had a connection. We have a terrific connection now, but her connection with my wife at a certain point was strained.
Of course.
Now they talk every single day, and I got to grab a moment. Right?
No, the ebbs and flows. That makes perfect sense.
You know what I mean? I'm just like, here's plates served,
please.
and then they just go back to doing all their fun stuff.
You're an incredible parent, and I know.
Well, sometimes cooking dinner is the incredible parent.
That's exactly. He's setting me up for success over here because he's willing to do it.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, first of all, you're an unbelievable dad. And I like hearing what you're saying where it's like it ebbs and flows. And I feel like that's the biggest thing I've learned from the nature of parenting is that things are going to ebb and flow. And I feel like, especially with the podcast, a lot of times people will be like, what's your advice on parenting? And I feel like the thing I've walked away from the most in the short years that I've been a parent has been, I can't really give you advice because we're talking about an individual, and that's the biggest piece of advice I can give you is that's an individual that you have. This is not a child. This is a human being who is going to be completely unique and special in their own way. And so I can't tell you how to parent your unique child, your specific child. Just treat them as such and try not to project your things on them the best you can.
Yeah. is what my philosophy
yeah.
I've said, but I don't know if I've executed it. I'm now in this reflective state where I've been talking to my kids about, I don't know if I got it right. And they've been telling me, it's okay, Dad, you've done fine. But I think the answer to what you're saying to some degree is with children, support and follow. Don't nudge and lead. They are going to be who they are, and you get to support it from behind. What assets do you need? What direction do you need? But following who they actually naturally are, as opposed to leading them down where you want them to be.
Yes. And just what you were saying, like how you were talking to your kids, being like, I don't know if I did this right. That's such a gift. Like the idea of one of our parents looking at us and being like, I'm sorry if, or I don't know if I did this right. Oh, what a deep breath.
Yeah, I'm not so sure baseball should have been as important as it was.
Sure.
You know?
But that is such a deep breath to hear as a child, to be like, oh my gosh, the idea that mom or dad is willing to have this conversation with me and acknowledge that, it changes everything.
And it goes, I'm going to wrap it up with this statement that was said to me by Jubilee, who does our social media. And she's this young kid. She's a kid to me. She's in her 20s now, but I've known her since she was 18. And she said it so perfectly when she's talking about her own parents. She says, it's their first time doing this too. And that has just
that's beautiful.
rocked my world, and I've been thinking about it ever since. It's all our first time. So as we wrap this up, first of all, there's a reason why they call their podcast Your Mom and Dad, because they're good at that. And so check it out, Your Mom and Dad podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. I'm really grateful to see you guys again.
We're so grateful to see you.
It's always my longest episode.
Thank you for being on our screens on Temptation Island again, because we just walk away
so good.
Starting so many conversations. You just inspire so many conversations always, and it's just like a warm blanket of hope. And we love you.
I love you both. And I love you all too, both of you people who are watching this. And yeah, so that's it. By the way, I'm going to be revisiting, not as a full episode, but as parts of other episodes. I Need a Bonfire with Mark. So if you've got questions, sort of like what we're going to do on your, because I overheard you saying that on your podcast. So if there's burning things in your mind, something you want to talk about, and you think my insight or the people I have around me's insight will help you, send us an email at bonfiretalkspodcast@gmail.com. And, or, hit us up with a DM or someplace where you can find us, and maybe we can get to that. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Evan, for being, in my opinion, an alpha male that doesn't make other people scared.
Yes.
And
that's sweet.
Jess, thank you for being a beacon of self-reflection and knowledge.
Thanks, Mark.
And looking forward to seeing you guys. I'm going to be on their podcast real soon.
Yes.
All right, that's it. I'm still looking for a way to sign off, so see you.